Hello and welcome to the product presentation of the new Netti Precision Seat Cushions, which, thanks to new technology, not only offer excellent pressure distribution, but also effective positioning. My name is Felix Ott, and today I would like to show you exactly how this works, how the cushions are designed, and which technology we use for the production. But first, let's start with the basics. What exactly is so special about our new precision line? Well, first of all, they are 3D printed, which means we print kind of a mesh made of TPU filaments. This doesn't only give us great freedom in terms of the overall shape of the seat cushion, but also allows us to vary the hardness of the cushion almost continuously by adjusting the strength of the connections between the individual elements of the structure. This enables us to create a smooth transition between softer and firmer areas of the cushion. I will explain exactly what we are aiming to achieve with this later on. The TPU material used is, of course, dermatologically safe and absolutely durable. Unlike foam, its properties do not change even after long-term use. The open structure doesn't only ensure optimal ventilation and therefore healthy skin climate, but can also be rinsed and cleaned under running water. For each of the three variants of our precision cushion, the focus was not only an optimal pressure distribution and thus relief for the vulnerable areas, but also on good and stable positioning of the user. But what exactly are the requirements for a seat cushion from an anatomical and therapeutical point of view? Put very simply, we have two main requirements for a seat cushion: skin protection and stable positioning. Let's start with skin protection first. What's the target group for seat cushions? It's actually usually persons who spend a lot of time sitting and often have severely limited sensitivity. Combined with the fact that a large part of the body weight is carried by very small areas, usually the bony structures of the pelvis, ischial tuberosity or short IT, trochanter bones, and the coccyx, this results in a dangerous combination. Very high pressures are exerted on specific small areas of the skin with the potential to cause irreparable damage to the skin. Sensitivity or pain, which prompts healthy or non-disabled persons to relieve pressure on these areas, is often not perceived. And the skin in these areas is not sufficiently supplied with blood over a long period of time and then dies off. The result is what is known as pressure ulcers. It's a skin damage that's very difficult and time-consuming to heal. During the healing process, these open wounds must be 100% pressure relieved, meaning that the affected persons are bedridden during this time and cannot go about their normal daily lives. The physical and psychological consequences are difficult for unaffected individuals to comprehend. In this context, pressure distribution means that the pressure on the highly stressed areas is also distributed to other less critical areas, thus reducing the pressure load on critical points. Other risks to the skin include shear forces, such as those that can occur when sliding forward on a pillow. Skin temperature and moisture also play an important role in the resilience of the skin. When these are within the optimal range, risk of skin damage is demonstrably lower. In summary, it can be said that skin protection must be a central issue in wheelchair care. Reduction of pressure on high-risk areas should be an absolute priority. And then, of course, there's positioning in the wheelchair. Wheelchair users often have severely limited trunk muscles and stability, and are unable to lift or rotate their pelvis to sit upright without support. In most cases, the pelvis then rotates posteriorly, which means backwards, and it tilts backwards, and this automatically results in a kyphotic seating positions, which then in turn requires a lordosis of the cervical spine, because the user is lifting the chin to achieve a parallel position of the eyes toward the ground again. Of course, this is neither a comfortable nor a functionally favorable position in the long term. On the picture on the right-hand side, we can see this effect. Number one, pelvis rotates posteriorly. It tilts backwards. Then the lumbar spine goes into a kyphosis, which means it goes backwards. The cervical spine goes in a lordosis, bends forwards to lift the head and bring the head in a functional position again. So that's just about what the seating position would look like. In order to achieve a comfortable and functional sitting position, the pelvis is key. It must be kept in position as much as possible, which can be achieved by using special shapes in the seat cushion, and additionally by using an anatomically correct backrest. The seat cushion usually has a hollow, we call that the seat pit, that prevents the pelvis from rotating backwards or sliding forwards. Thanks to our 3D printing technology, we can design this seat pit so that the edges are firmer and provide more support for the pelvis. But let's take a look at how exactly a Precision 1 or 2 cushion is constructed. So on this picture, we can see the different zones of a precision cushion. Red marks the soft zones in the particularly vulnerable areas where the ITs, coccyx, and trochanter are located. Those are bony structures, very tippy bones, especially the ITs. So those areas on the cushion are designed to be particularly soft so that those bony structures can sink deeply into the cushion and then be optimally enveloped by the cushion, which means the peak load will be distributed over a larger area then. This zone is also designed as seat pit to provide stability for the pelvis. The areas directly in front and behind the seat pit are then printed significantly harder. So less vulnerable bone structures, such as, for example, thigh bones and the iliac crest, rest here, but sink less. The result is that these areas bear a higher load and therefore further relieve the vulnerable bone structures. In extreme cases, this could be compared to a ring cushion, where the entire load rests on the outer ring and the middle area hangs more or less in the air. Again, that would have lots of disadvantages again, but with the precision cushions, however, we at least use this effect. Ultimately, however, the combination of deep sinking in the vulnerable areas and support for the less sensitive areas produces a very good result and very low peak pressures comparable to air chamber cushions, especially around the IT areas. The sides of the precision cushions, they feature different layers, so it's soft layers in the upper area and firmer layers in the lower area. That offers higher lateral stability and a good protection at the same time. So what's special as well about the precision cushions? The superior microclimate. And that's something that applies to all areas of the cushion. The open structure of the 3D printing ensures that the cushion is very well ventilated, and that again regulates temperature and dissipates humidity. And we can see how well microclimate on the precision cushions works on this slide. The precision cushions have, of course, been tested in accordance with all relevant standards, and those tests were carried out at the University of Pittsburgh, where many of our competitors also have their cushions tested. Apart from the fact that all tests were passed with positive results, anonymized data from the University of Pittsburgh shows that Netti precision cushions are superior to 14 other seat cushions from our competitors when it comes to temperature and humidity. Precision cushions achieved a 19% lower skin moisture and 2.5 degree lower skin temperature compared to 14 other cushions which have been tested. So both high humidity and higher temperature are critical factors that can support damage of the skin. All right, so far it has been some therapeutical and anatomical basics here, but let's summarize all the features of our precision cushions. So first of all, the cushions offer a very good pressure distribution with low peak pressures. At the same time, positioning and seating is very stable on the cushions. We have an excellent ventilation, which is achieved by the open structure for a better skin climate. And we have consistently stable properties of the cushion, which means the cushion won't sink in or lose any of their functions over time. When you look at some hygienic points, the cushions are machine washable at 60 degrees. And what's quite important and can be very handy, they can be washed quickly. So you can simply rinse them underwater. They won't soak because of the open structure, which means they dry quite quick afterwards and can then be reused after only a couple of minutes. If you look at the service perspective on the cushions, there's no preparation necessary. You can unpack and use the precision cushions right away. There's no adjustment or adaptation necessary. You don't need to inflate them. You don't need to use foam wedges or anything else to bring them in shape. You unpack them and you're ready to go. What's much more important from my point of view is there's no regular checks necessary on the cushions. If you look at air chamber cushions, for example, you will have to check on the pressure from time to time. And when the user himself is not able to perform those checks, you will need another person to do so. And last but not least, but a very important point, the precision cushions are not prone to errors or defects. Why that's important, we will see on the next slides. So let's just quickly compare our 3D printed TPU material with other materials regularly used in wheelchair cushions. And let's just start with foam. Foam is quite common in wheelchair cushions. It's relatively inexpensive. It's not prone to defects. And with foam cushions as well, you can see that on the picture on the bottom, you have the possibility to mold structures for positioning and stabilization into the foam. And you can always combine different densities of foam to make the cushion softer in the rather risky, vulnerable areas and firmer in the areas you need for positioning. However, you will never have a seamless transfer from soft to firmer zones. There will always be something like a step in between the soft and the firm zones. There are a couple of disadvantages as well on foam, especially when it comes to temperature and moisture regulation. Air, of course, won't ventilate very good in that dense foam. So that's one downside. And one other is clearly that foam material will settle over time. So the cushion will lose height, will become more dense. So it should be checked and replaced regularly. One of the biggest things we notice on foam cushions, um, there will always be higher peak pressures on foam material because the material does not envelop bony structures as well as other technologies do. So if we do pressure mappings, we will always find higher peak pressures on those foam cushions. So it's maybe no long-term solutions for persons with a very high risk for pressure ulcers. If you then look at air cushions with connected air cells, there's again up and downsides on that technology. First of all, those cushions have a very good pressure distribution and a very good envelopment of bones or structures sinking into the cushion, which will then result in very low peak pressures. Furthermore, those cushions can be cleaned pretty well because you can simply rinse them underwater again. Of course, you cannot machine wash those cushions. What are the downsides? Positioning, clearly. Some cushions offer positioning options by separating areas of the cushion. They can then be locked separately, so you can achieve some kind of positioning here. However, the whole structure will not be firm enough to offer perfect positioning. Secondly, temperature and moisture regulation properties. Of course, the material of those cushions is designed to not let air pass through. And once you sit on the cushions, there will not be much air ventilation there, of course. The biggest issues on air cushions, from my point of view, is maintenance and reliability. Those cushions are not maintenance free because you have to check air pressure on a regular basis. And again, if the person sitting on the cushion is not able to do this by themselves, there will always be a second person who has to do those regular checks on air pressure. And reliability, air cushions can potentially leak and lose air. And once they lose air, they can lose their function almost completely. Of course, you can fix that again. You can patch the cushions and fix that. But still, over that time, the cushion will not work properly. Now that we compared some of the materials used for wheelchair cushions, on this slide, we can see a direct comparison of the cushions in terms of pressure measurement. The test person, by the way, is always the same on all pictures. The tests are quite easy. You put a cushion on a wheelchair, then you put a pressure mapping mat on top of the cushion, and then you sit a person on this mat, and you will then see a picture of the pressure distribution on the display. The colors are as follows. Blue, that's always the lowest color, and the brighter it gets, running over light blue, orange, yellow, and red, the more red you see, the higher the pressure it is, of course. And if you look at the first picture on the left-hand side, that's a Netti sit cushion, and that's already a multi-layered foam cushion here. But you will immediately see the yellow-red areas standing out here. Those are the ITs, and those are always the areas where the highest pressure is applied. The redder the color again, the higher the pressure. And the peak pressure on the ITs is 90 millimeter Hg. That's how we measure the pressure. And the user sinks into an area of 1,516 square centimeters. If you compare that to an air chamber cushion, with the air pressure set according to the manufacturer's specification, the peak pressure is already significantly lower. We achieve a peak pressure, again, that would usually be on the ITs, of 71 millimeter Hg. That's 22% lower than on the foam cushion. Again, on a comparable Precision 2 cushion, that's what you see on the right hand on the bottom. The peak pressure is quite similar to the air pressure. It's 72 millimeter Hg. But this is achieved despite less sinking into the cushion. And this reduced sinking can be attributed to the better support and positioning of the firmer areas. Conclusion is that the ergomise technology we are using for the precision cushions is at a comparable level in terms of peak pressure, but offers significantly better positioning and less forward slipping and a better microclimate. So finally, I would like to show you the available versions of the precision cushion. It's a total of 3 versions, and they naturally differ in terms of their skin protection and positioning properties. I would now like to show you exactly what distinguishes them from each other. And let's start right away with the Precision Active. Now, that's a version specially designed for active users who may still have sensitivity and also move actively to ensure regular pressure relief. The Precision Active has a height of 70 millimeter in the front, 80 millimeter at the back, and that makes it the lowest of the 3 cushions. In addition to that, the seat pit for pelvic positioning is significantly less pronounced here. Due to the lower height, the user naturally sinks less deeply, and the elevations in the rear of the cushions to support the iliac crest and relieve pressure on the ITs are also less pronounced on the active. Overall, the cushion is therefore aimed at users with maybe deeper paralysis who still have trunk stability and possibly even sensitivity. In this case, cushions that are too soft with very deep seat pits may even be perceived as uncomfortable. However, the pressure distribution and relief of critical areas does, of course, not reach the high level of the Precision 1 or Precision 2 version. This brings us right away to the Precision 1. Target group for this cushion is still active users who have significantly higher demands in terms of positioning and skin protection. The Precision 2 is also significantly higher, 85 millimeters at the front and just under 100 millimeter at the rear. The upper layer is softer here, allowing the user to sink in much deeper and therefore distribute the pressure over a larger area. In addition, there is now a raised section molded into the rear area. You can see those humps in the rear section. And those areas support the iliac crest, which means they take the load off the vulnerable areas, especially the ITs. The seat pit is now also clearly molded, so the pelvis is supported against slipping and tilting backwards. Here we already see a significant improvement in skin protection and positioning without restricting the user through excessive contouring during his ADLs, his activities of daily living, such as, for example, transferring in or out of the wheelchair, or maybe getting dressed in the wheelchair. Now, the third cushion in the range, that's the Precision 2, which is aimed at semi-active or passive users who are at a very high risk of pressure ulcers and have very limited or no trunk control. With a height of 85 millimeters in the front and 110 millimeters in the rear, and in addition to that, a significantly larger and deeper seat pit, as well as higher supporting elements in the rear. This cushion is now designed for a maximum of skin protection and very strong positioning. The Precision 2, of course, offers the lowest peak pressures at the ITs and a very strong positioning to minimize sliding forward in the seat. This contouring might already be perceived as too strong for active users. This means that there is the right precision cushion for every type of user, meeting their requirements for skin protection, positioning, and activity. Further information, available sizes, prices, and order forms can always be found at myra.com/products/wheelchairs/Netti/Netti-seat cushions, or simply search for Netti Precision. That's already it for this short product presentation, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank you for your attention and, by the way, recommend the MYRA MYCampus, which is our training and education program at MYRA. You can always find the overview on myra.com/MyCampus, and here you will not only find our in-person seminars, but also a wide range of e-learning courses on all topics related to wheelchair care, as well as further product presentations and information.